The Deathworld Summit had always been a private affair. Every few cycles, the galaxy's most dangerous species convened on Valhalla Prime, a planet so lethal that even the atmosphere required a waiver. The summit existed for one purpose: to ensure that the apex predators of the cosmos never turned their wrath on each other. It was a congress of monsters, tyrants, and war-forged civilizations, all bound by a fragile understanding. For 1,000,000 years, one rule stayed unbroken: no species below Deathworld Classification 4 was ever allowed inside. So when humanity received an invitation, the galaxy thought it was a clerical error. Humans were new, untested, and officially classified as a Deathworld 2. Most species assumed they survived through luck. Others believed they exaggerated their abilities. None had ever seen what humans truly were. But one name, spoken in hushed tones by those who had met them, kept resurfacing: Apex adjacent. No one took it seriously. Not until the humans arrived. The summit chamber was carved within the living heart of a mountain, pulsating like a massive, alien organ. Bioluminescent tendrils cast shifting shadows across the delegates. The air was thick with chemical pheromones, telepathic static, and low-frequency growls, each representing the presence of a species capable of continent-scale destruction. When the humans walked in, the entire room fell silent. They didn't wear armor. They didn't bring weapons. They weren't even physically imposing by galactic standards, just tall mammals wrapped in formal fabrics. But the way they walked, every species felt it. Slow. Calm. Controlled. Like something that had never known fear. Even the Valhallan hosts, predators with scythes for limbs, tilted their heads in a cautious display of respect. Human ambassador Alina Reyes surveyed the chamber with the cool poise of someone entering a boardroom, not a cavern of nightmares. Behind her stood a 3-person team. The galaxy soon learned those four were more dangerous than entire armies. The first insult happened fast. A representative from the KRYL Dominion, an 8-meter arachnid whose venom could dissolve starship hulls, leaned forward and hissed that humans smelled fragile. Reyes simply raised an eyebrow and replied, "We didn't come here to intimidate anyone, but if you insist, we can arrange a demonstration." The chamber buzzed. Deathworlders did not joke. Ever the KRYL lunged to make a point. It never reached her. In the space between two heartbeats, the human security officer stepped in, pivoted, and knocked the creature unconscious using nothing more than momentum and precision. The display was so clean, so shockingly efficient, that even the warlike Dravok shrank back in their seats. Humans had just executed a perfect takedown on a creature that could liquefy most species by spitting on them. Delegates re-evaluated their assumptions. What followed was worse for them. During the biological resilience tests, intended as a harmless cultural exchange, humans watched with utter confusion as other species froze in temperatures they considered chilly, gagged at spices they considered mild, and panicked when exposed to what humans called low gravity. A Valhallan scientist muttered that humans had accidentally evolved for extremes. Another whispered that their metabolism looked like it had been designed for war. When the summit hosted the traditional Trial of Endurance, a ceremonial survival gauntlet meant only for bragging rights, no one expected humans to join. They did. Every single one of them completed it. One even set a record. While humming, the final straw came on the third day. The summit's purpose was to prevent conflict among apex species, but for the first time, a new issue emerged. The apex species themselves feared that humans might already be one. Delegates questioned whether humanity should even be present. Reyes stood, calm as ever, and addressed them with a politely terrifying grace. "You invited us thinking we were harmless. That's fine. Misunderstandings happen. But humanity is not here to posture or threaten. We came because you classified our world incorrectly." The chamber held its breath. Worth is a Deathworld 5. Gasps rippled through the assembly. Entire civilizations had fallen trying to colonize Deathworld 5s. They were walking nightmares, planets so violent that evolution itself turned into a perpetual war. Reyes continued, we didn't realize it until we studied your criteria. Everything that wants to kill you on a typical Deathworld 5? We have that. Except ours evolved teeth, venom, stealth camouflage, and a hatred for anything warm-blooded. And the plants are worse. A few delegates visibly trembled, and despite that, she added, we flourished. Built civilizations. Explored the stars. We don't define ourselves by our environment. We adapt. We overcome. And if we cannot, we change the rules. No threat was spoken. None was needed. Every apex predator in the chamber recognized the same thing. They weren't looking at prey pretending to be predators. They were looking at something that had survived so much environmental hostility that diplomacy, warfare, and biology itself were just puzzles for humans to solve. The room shifted. The respect given to Deathworlders was extended to humanity instantly. Varcolan hosts lowered their blades. Dravok commanders inclined their armored spines. The KRYL representative, still groggy, asked for human martial training. Humans were no longer visitors. They were equals. Worse, possible superiors. When the summit ended, a new clause was added to the ancient treaties: humanity shall be considered a stabilizing force and a major Deathworld power. In other words, the galaxy decided it was best to stay on humanity's good side. As the humans departed, one Varcolan elder muttered to his aides, we wanted to measure them. Instead, we discovered a new apex. For the first time in its long, brutal history, the Deathworld Summit had made a mistake. They had invited humans, and humanity had shown them exactly why that was dangerous. The shuttle ride away from the summit site was eerily silent. Human Ambassador Alina Reyes sat by the viewport, watching Varcola Prime's jagged horizon bleed into the nebula-lit void. Her escort team remained unusually stiff. They were trained special operators, soldiers hardened by years of deployments, but even they understood what had just happened. Humanity had walked into a gathering of beings who could tear starships apart with their bare limbs, and walked out as one of them. But the moment they left the Mountain Heart chamber, Reyes felt eyes on her. Not hostile, but calculating. Curious. Measuring something was beginning. Back inside the summit, the apex species remained in an uproar. They gathered in private alcoves, spore cloud lounges, and telepathic nodes, whispering about humans. Some felt admiration. Others terror. A few, dangerously paranoid, believed humanity must be destroyed before they grew stronger. Among them sat the Zoltri Covenant, beings of shimmering obsidian flesh and crystalline eyes. The Zoltri were strategists, emotionless, cold, and ancient. Their civilization had conquered 10-star clusters. They prided themselves on predicting every threat. They had not predicted humans. A Zoltri elder tapped its clawed fingers together, sending ripples of fractal light through its body. The humans exhibited control, strength, adaptability. Traits consistent with a hyper-predator lineage. Another replied, we misclassified their world. That error must be corrected. The eldest Zoltri's voice hummed like cracking ice. No. We must correct them. The declaration echoed like a death sentence, but before any conspiracy could take root, the mountain, the living mountain, shook. The Varcolan hosts recoiled, their limbs snapping upward in alarm. Delegates panicked. The summit hall convulsed again, harder this time. Something massive moved beneath the chamber floor, something ancient enough for even Deathworlders to fear. Reyes sensed the vibrations even from the shuttle. She rose instantly. The Mountain Heart was alive, yes, but it was also dormant. It shouldn't have been moving, pilot, she said sharply. Turn us around. Ambassador, our orders, that's not an order. It's survival. They circled back, and Reyes felt a sensation she didn't like, the unmistakable prickle of danger that humans, through millions of years on Earth, had learned to trust more than sight. Inside the summit hall, the floor cracked, species that had never known fear backed away. Those with telepathic senses screamed. Something awakened in the deep biological networks of Valhalla Prime, a creature older than the summit itself, something the Valhallans revered, but also sealed away. A primordial apex. A life form so dangerous it was considered the biological ruler of all Deathworlds. The summit had unknowingly gathered too many high-tier species in one place. Their combined aggression, pheromonal displays, and territorial energies had triggered the primordial's instincts. To it, they were challengers. Its emergence was slow, horrible, seismic. A goring mass of scales, bone spines, and molten black armor burst through the chamber floor. Delegates scattered. A Dravok warlord was flung against a wall with such force that the wall cracked. The Valhallan hosts began chanting ancient warnings. Reyes entered the chamber seconds later, as dust and debris rained like ash. Her team followed close, weapons drawn now, not by choice but necessity. The primordial apex towered over them, a creature so perfectly adapted for violence that every movement was a threat. It scanned the room, reading every species as prey, predator, or rival. When its burning eyes reached Reyes, it froze. She didn't know why. She only knew instinctively what to do, what every human on Earth had learned when facing a predator. She held her ground. The entire chamber stared in disbelief as the human ambassador, small, unarmored, soft by galactic standards, met the gaze of a planet killer without flinching. Animals, even galactic apexes, understood body language. Reyes sent a message older than language itself: I am not prey. The primordial's massive head tilted. It sniffed the air, finding something familiar. Humanity's evolutionary lineage whispered to it. Something in humans connected back to primordial terrors. Something in the creature recognized that humans had survived monsters just like it. A low rumble filled the hall, not aggression. Acknowledgement, but the Zoltri did not interpret it this way. Believing the creature distracted, they fired a crystallized sonic bolt meant to stun both the primordial apex and the humans. The beam struck the ground inches from Reyes. The primordial roared, a sound that ruptured the air like a collapsing star. It turned on the Zoltri instantly. Chaos erupted. Zoltri strategists unleashed defense drones. Dravoks charged. Valhallan screeched war cries. The primordial surged with terrifying speed, ripping through armor and psychic barriers alike. Reyes didn't hesitate. She spoke to the entire hall. Everyone stop. You're provoking it. No one listened, except the primordial, which paused again, eyes flicking toward her. Voice. Her team realized it too. It's responding to you, whispered Officer Malik. What the hell are you doing? Something very stupid, she muttered back. But we're not letting this turn into species-wide extinction. She stepped toward the creature, slow. Controlled. Every species watched, some praying, some horrified, some fascinated, as the human reached out and placed her palm against the primordial's obsidian hide. The heat was intense. The air vibrated around it like a sonic boom trapped in slow motion. The creature stilled, then lowered its massive body. A gesture of submission. The summit hall fell into absolute, breathless silence. A human, one of the supposed lesser species, had just tamed a beast that made Deathworlders run. When Reyes turned back to the assembled apex species, dust swirling like a throne room mist, she spoke with a calm authority no one could ignore. We came here as guests. You doubted us. Feared us. Misjudged us. She gestured at the primordial apex, which now crouched obediently beside her like a mountain-sized guardian. Let this be the last time you underestimate humanity. No one argued. No one dared. The galaxy had just witnessed something impossible. Humans, creatures from a Deathworld 5, were not simply survivors, predators, or warriors. They were something the universe had forgotten to classify, something dangerous, something new. And as the primordial apex's molten eyes glowed behind her, the elder Valhallan whispered a phrase no species had spoken in 1,000 generations. A new apex has risen. If you want, I can continue even further with